Now, I'm someone who is constantly trying to improve the quality of my videos, and one thing that I've been working on a lot recently is audio. So in today's video, I want to talk about a couple of the tricks that I use to record better dialogue. Now, I want to preface this video by saying that I am working with very high quality audio gear, and that is obviously going to improve the sound quality of my audio. But the tips that I'm going to talk about in this video can be applied to most gear, and it doesn't require you to buy a lot of expensive audio equipment. Also, if there's one area of equipment that I would highly recommend investing more money into, it's audio equipment, because the nice thing about audio equipment is that it lasts a long time. Unlike cameras, audio equipment doesn't typically get a yearly update where you've got new features and new things to entice you to buy a new model. For example, the microphone that I'm using right now is the same one that I used 4 years ago, and it's the same one that I'll be using in 4 years. So in my opinion, I would personally recommend budgeting a little bit of extra money towards your audio equipment because it's going to outlast a lot of your other stuff. Also, at the end of the video, I will break down my main audio rig and talk about the pieces of equipment that I bought and why I bought them. So my first tip is to get close. Get really close. One mistake I see all the time with people who are inexperienced with operating a boom microphone is they're always scared to get too close to the actors out of fear of obviously getting in the shot. But more often than not, you can get the microphone a lot closer than you think without being in the shot. My philosophy whenever I'm operating a boom mic is I'm going to get as close as possible until the director says, hey, get out of the shot. So I want to get the microphone as close to my actors as humanly possible, because the closer the microphone is, the better quality audio you're going to get. This is where I would really recommend investing in a boom mic system if you can, because it allows you to get the microphone a lot closer, and you'll notice a big difference if you go from having your microphone mounted on top of your camera to using a boom mic and being able to get that microphone really close. Now, if you can't invest in a full boom mic setup, getting a lav mic is also good for this, especially if you're doing dialogue, because you can clip the microphone to your actor and now you have a microphone literally strapped to their chest. So my first and probably most important tip is just get the mic as close as humanly possible. Now, my second tip is to control the environment as much as possible. I've had shoots where I'm filming out on location and it's super windy and there's really only so much you can do in that situation. But with these YouTube videos, for example, I'm filming in a space that I can control. Now, one thing I would like to do to this room is to add some better soundproofing, because the walls tend to bounce a lot of sound off of them, and it creates echo and reverb that doesn't sound great, and I know you can remove it in post, but it makes the audio sound worse. Regardless of that, I try to film in this room in specific spots, or I try to add some things to modify that spot to make it sound better. For example, this setup right here is better than this setup because here I'm talking into a very blank wall that is bouncing a lot of that sound right back at me, right back into the microphone, and so we're going to hear a lot of that echo and reverb. Whereas here, I'm talking into a corner where there's blinds, there's the monitors, and there's stuff that's kind of breaking up the audio and reducing that echo. Hi, Editing Matt here. So those clips actually sounded a lot similar than I wanted them to, and I think there's a few reasons behind that, and it's a good lesson on how to get good audio with a shotgun mic. So with a shotgun mic, it's very directional, so a lot of the audio that it's going to pick up is going to come from the front, and anywhere else around the mic, it's going to kind of reject it. You're going to get a little bit from the sides, not much from the back, but most of it is going to pick up from the front. Now, in these clips, I have the mic mounted below me like this, and I'm projecting down into it. Now, this does a couple of things. Number one, it faces the side of the mic towards the wall where the reverb is coming from, and that's the side of the mic that's not going to pick up nearly as much audio. So we're already reducing the amount of reverb. Now, because I'm booming from below instead of from above, which is the traditional way of doing it, I'm actually projecting my voice into carpet instead of into the ceiling. And that's very important because obviously carpet is going to dampen sound a lot more than a flat, blank ceiling. So when you put this all together, it makes the audio in both sequences sound exactly the same, even though they're in different locations, and in theory the reverb should have been a little different. So again, keeping the mic close, sometimes booming down instead of up, and realizing where the reverb might be coming from and angling the mic to kind of reject that are all things you can try to do to reduce reverb and make your audio clearer. In this setup, for example, I have a blanket set up behind me, and so where I'm projecting the audio out, it's kind of dampening it and there's less reverb coming back. You could also invest in a sound dampening blanket, and if you kind of set that up wherever you're talking to, that's going to help dampen the sound and reduce that echo and reverb that you don't really want. Now, for me, I just use a normal blanket because it's a decently thick blanket and it gets the job done, and it's something that I already had. So if you're really on a budget, just using a normal blanket is going to get the job done, and it's really going to make a difference. A sound dampening blanket might be a little bit nicer, but you can get away with just a normal blanket. Okay, so this is my audio rig. I've also switched to a lav mic, so you can compare how this sounds to how this rig sounds. This is what I use to record the other parts of this video. Now, there's two main pieces of gear that I'm going to talk about. It's the mic and the recorder, and those are pretty much the most important parts of this rig. The actual boom pole is very generic. You can find whatever brand you want for that, and I will talk about how I rigged this up and how I've got it set up and why I have it set up the way that I do. So let's start with the main piece right here. It's a Sennheiser MKE600. I had the luxury of using this microphone while in high school before I purchased one for myself, and it has been fantastic. I have no complaints about this microphone. Again, I've been using it for 4 years now, and I have no plans on upgrading. It has just worked. That's the best thing I can say about it. It just works, it sounds great, and I have loved using it. It's not insanely expensive, especially when you're looking at other XLR mics for this price range and this budget, and the quality on it, again, it just works and it sounds really good. There's not much I have to do to get this thing to sound good. It's just a solid, nice, decently affordable, again, it's not, budget, super cheap microphone, but for what it is, I believe it's a great price for a microphone that you can have for 10 years, probably, 10 plus years maybe. Looking on the other end, now we've got the recorder. Now for the recorder, I chose the Zoom F3, and once again, I had the luxury of testing this out before I bought it myself. Now, a production that I'm working on and have actually been the sound guy for was using one of these recorders, and I had the luxury of talking with the director who owns all of the gear and asking him kind of why he chose this recorder. So first things first, you're going to notice that there's no volume knob on this recorder. It's a very, very basic recorder with not a ton going on. The reason there's no volume knob is because you don't have to adjust the volume on the unit. It records raw audio, which gives you a ton of flexibility in post as far as lowering the audio level or raising the audio level, so you don't actually need to adjust it on the recorder, which was super nice to use as someone who was operating it for the first time and was unfamiliar with it. It was pretty much just plug the mic in, plug your headset in, hit record, and you're good to go. There's not a lot of worrying about, are my levels too high? Are they too low? All of that was just out the window, and it was super easy to use. Number two, it's very compact. It's nice and small, and when I was using it as a recorder, I would actually have it mounted onto my belt. Now, my rig, I've obviously built it out a little bit differently, and there's a reason for that. The one downside of the rig that I was using on that shoot is that it doesn't have a boom pole that has a XLR cable running through it, but obviously the one that I have here does. And what this does is it allows this whole setup to be very portable, very compact. Now, because it's on this rig, it's gonna be a little bit hard to, I can't really move it, but essentially all the operator has is, though there would be a headset, that would be the one thing that would be added on that isn't on this rig currently, but basically everything is just connected to the boom pole. So it's one thing that you have to hold, and it's super nice. And I basically just have a small rig super clamp to mount the recorder to the boom pole, and then I just have a short XLR that goes from the end of the boom pole into the recorder, and then the rest of the cabling is done through the boom pole, which means that you're not messing with, a 50-foot XLR cable while you're trying to record, and it makes for a very compact and very nice to use setup. With all of that being said, I hope you found these tips helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye for now. For the most part, there's not a new... My goodness. I'm so glad I was recording that. Hi, buddy. Okay, it's gonna happen again. He's gonna do it again. Watch. He's getting riled up right now. Especially when compared to cameras, for instance, audio...